Welcome to the Ruckus Associate SmartZone Administrator demonstration series for the SmartZone OS5 release. SmartZone OS5 is the network controller operating system that's available on the SmartZone 100 and SmartZone 300 hardware platforms, and as we'll be discussing here, the virtual SmartZone network controller platform. This presentation describes the configuration parameters for an individual access point on the SmartZone network controller running SmartZone OS5. In order to get the most from this presentation, you should be familiar with zones and access point groups. Both of these topics are covered in separate video demonstrations from Ruckus Education. So here I have a virtual SmartZone network controller running SmartZone OS5. I'm going to click on access points over here, and this will take me to my access point configuration. And I'll show you a little bit of the hierarchy I have here. I've got a partner domain with a subdomain configured under it. I'll expand that and have a partner zone configured under that. And underneath that zone, I have two AP groups. So if I click on these, I'll show the APs that are members of those groups. So I have this AP as a member of this education AP group here. So the AP doesn't take the configuration parameters of the zone's default access point group that gets created when you create the zone. It has settings that are overriding the zone configuration default AP group with a manually configured AP group called the education AP group. And this access point that I have here is a member of that. So there's a hierarchy to everything we do in SmartZone, and it basically follows that pattern from an AP's configuration standpoint. They inherit it from the zone. When the zone's created, a default group is created, and then you can create individual access point groups where you can take a subset of those APs that are part of the zone and give them specific settings just because they are members of that group. Now, once we have an AP associated with SmartZone and actually part of one of these zones, we can get into the access point itself and make specific changes just to that access point itself. So we do that by highlighting the access point. And once it's highlighted, we can click the configure button once it's available to us. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we get here. You'll first see we have two tabs. We have an AP configuration tab and a swap configuration tab. We'll talk about the swap configuration tab after we go through some of the things that are available in here. Now, the first thing to note in the AP configuration tab is we have some settings that we can change and some that are applied. So an AP itself has to have a name. It'll get a default name when it's defined at the factory, but we can change that to something specific to us to make this AP more functional and easier for us to manage. Now, we can also go and override something specific to these other parameters that have an override button on them. So if the override toggle switch is set to off, it's basically inheriting the parameters from either the AP group or the AP zone. So, and again, the zone creates the default AP group. So basically you inherit it from a group, but one is from the zone's configuration in that default AP group or from the group this is a member of. So we know this is a member of a user-defined AP group. So these settings, you'll see them filled in here and they're grayed out because they're inherited from the group that we're a member of, but I can override these settings by toggling the switch to on. And when the switch is toggled to on, it basically says I'm overriding the configuration that's set up in the group that I'm in, and I'm going to apply it specifically to this one AP only. So let's just add, so it's the third floor only conference room. So now this specific AP gives me some information about where it's at. And everything over here with the toggle switch, I can override a setting that's configured in the AP group that I'm in. Now I'm not going to go through all of these settings and and everything that's in here and what they do, because these settings are covered in the zone configuration presentation. So if you haven't viewed that presentation or don't have a good solid understanding of zones and AP groups, I suggest you take a look at those before you continue on through the rest of this presentation. But as you can see here, we can see again grayed out the configurations that are applied to this AP based on what it inherited from the AP group that's a member of. And if we simply toggle this switch, we can override or change some of those settings. And this applies to all the settings that you see here and all of the settings under AP SNMP options. And we can override the zones and AP groups configurations there. We can modify zone-specific AP options, and they'll be specific to this AP if we want to do that. And we can also modify advanced settings for the access point. So these are the settings that are available for us to modify and make specific to just this AP and make it still part of an access point group, but have individual settings that are specific only to this access point. Now, one of the more important options here that I do want to call out and highlight for you is right up here under the radio options. Under the radio options configuration, we have the ability at a specific AP to turn on or off the WLAN service for either or both of these radios. So that's this option right here and this option right here. So we can actually, it'll still be a member of the AP group. It'll still have all WLANs created and associated with those groups, but we can turn off all WLAN services on the antenna for this one AP. This could be useful in several different scenarios of where you might want one radio active and one not active, or for any other functionality you'd like to have for any maintenance reasons or anything else in your network. So this is another key option that you have here at the AP itself, where you can actually disable that specific access point's radio. So now let's look at the swap configuration tab. So over here, when we click on the swap configuration tab, what this tab does is allows us to swap an AP with an existing AP. So if we need to replace an access point out in the field, we don't have to have downtime when the new AP comes on. The new AP will basically inherit all the settings of this AP itself. So we can turn this on, and what we supply here is the MAC address in this format with the colons between each of the bytes, and we can set this up and we provide the MAC address of the new AP that we are bringing in. Now that AP does have to be the exact same model of the AP we're looking at right here in this configuration. So remember, when an AP goes off of line, you can still look at that AP's configuration in SmartZone, because the configuration is just a bunch of information in SmartZone for how this access point is supposed to operate when it's online. So if an AP were to go offline and you needed to replace it with another one, you could still access this configuration. You can put the new MAC address of the new AP in here as long as it's the same model, and notice these other fields are grayed out, meaning you can't edit them, and basically you are going to assign all of the settings from this AP to the new one you're swapping in based on its MAC address once you put that in. And then once that MAC address finds the SmartZone controller, this configuration will be applied, and this AP will operate the same as the one it's replacing, and the one it's replacing will be pulled out of the system. Once we put in that information, we'll click OK, but we don't have a real AP to swap in here, so I'm going to turn this off and just cancel these settings. And that is going to conclude our presentation on individual access point settings. Again, this presentation is part of the Ruckus Associate SmartZone Administrator demonstration series for SmartZone OS5. There are many other demonstrations detailing configuration processes and other options. So I hope to see you back for more presentations in the future. Thank you.